It is 8:32, and I'll call this meeting to order. And as interim chair for this, I'm opening nominations for chair for the Exec Finance Committee.
I'll second that.
Don't need one.
No, true.
Any other nominations?
Make a motion to close nominations and cast them.
Okay, we need a second to
I'll
that.
second.
Okay. Any other discussion? No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Nominations are now open for vice chair.
It was David Orr, so it is open.
Oh,
Yes, yep.
I nominate Bridget.
Okay. Any other nominations? Any other nominations?
Again, make a motion to close nominations and cast their name out for Bridget Turner.
Second.
Okay. Okay, I'm assuming there's no questions on this either, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Bridget's new vice chair. And then we need a secretary. Nominations are now open for secretary.
It's
Nominate,
an easy one because we've got a recording on, all you have to do is sign.
yeah, nominate Doc Sacia. Anybody else? Any other nominations?
Make a motion to close.
I'll second it.
And a second, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Okay, that's done. Certification that the open meeting laws requirement have been met. I think so. Paul's certifying, yep, okay. Adoption of an agenda for today. There's a 19-item agenda.
Move to adopt.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a question or point based on what I saw in a conversation. Corporation Counsel may have a little conflict timing, so I suggest her time is, if she shows up, that we move her to the next item on the agenda.
That's
She's got
fine.
conflict prior and after. Okay, so with that change, any other questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Now we have our public comment period. Members,
Adopt the minutes. Minutes from the last meeting.
minutes, yep. Okay, I put okay in the wrong thing, that's why. Wrong line. Okay, minutes.
Move to approve.
Discussion? Anybody? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Now we'll go to the public comments. Members of the public will have a 15-minute block of time to comment on today's agenda items. Members may be present in person or call in to make such comments. Comment by telephone, please call 715-538-1894. Public comment may be extended or curtailed at the direction of the committee/board chair after advisement of the committee board. Is there anyone here that wishes to comment on our agenda today? Seeing no hands in person, we'll leave it open for a little bit for calls. Again, if you wish to call, 715-538-1894. And we'll move on to the county sales tax update.
We had a little bit of a dip this time. The amount was 146,841.39, which is lower than both of the last 2 years. And it puts us at 325,598.59 so far.
Any thinking on that from your experience, a
would
lag
be-
or anything like that?
It would be the February sales, so I don't know if that was a,
Okay, okay. Well,
Too warm back then, people are out.
What's that?
It was nice and warm back then.
Well, maybe. Okay, well, let's pay attention to it.
yes.
General fund update.
Well, I put it right. Look at John's real fast. We had the actions in March, so there wasn't really anything in April's county board, so it stayed the same. I think it's probably next page, there it is. So we're at $2,860,478.
Questions or comments on general fund? If not. Excuse me, department reports and requests, and according to my notes, Rose is up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody is the same except Adi. He's new. So that's why I have the,
I wish I wasn't.
you're brand new. That's why I have the report the way it is. I just wanted to, and it's kind of a good review for everybody, what agencies that we serve. That is in that first, look at all our records, the vital records, the real estate records. So we have a lot of those folks come in, or they access it. The internal can access our records from within. We have, it's called the RADO, so they access all our records from inside. So anybody that wants access within can have that. I think Ann's office and uses that a lot. So, and then the next one is a chart showing who we serve as the public and what records we have in our office. And then the third one is showing how everything runs, how the public records flow chart with the pre-recording and the recording, how it happens, like the realtor and the offer to purchase and how things happen in our office. It's kind of a flow chart. And the next one is a post-recording, who looks at our records. And then that following, the vital record shows, this is probably what you're more interested in, when we collect a fee, the $20 for the first copy of the vital records, shows what the county general fund, the children's trust fund, and the state department of administration, what portions they get of all of our records, of the vital records. And then the next one shows the real estate fee splits. And the real estate, the county general fund gets $15, and then Ann's office gets $8, and the state land information gets $7. And then the transfer fees, I think you remember we were trying to get that to be 50-50 split. Well, it's still at 80-20. So it used to be 50-50, but then they raised the fee from $1 to $3, and they said, well, 20%, you'll still get more than what you did at the 50-50. So that's why they switched. And then the last is the statistics compared to 2022. Everything was down a little bit in 2023. And at that bottom line shows like birth, death, marriage, the number of real estate documents and the transfer fees, all of those show how much less it was for 23 than 22. And then the very last one is the e-recording documents versus total documents. We are at 84% electronic recording, and that hasn't changed in the last couple of years, so that's about the same. That's all I have. Anybody have any questions? Two.
One, just on the electronic filing, are we reaching a point that is last 15% is difficult to convert to digital, or is it just grumpy old people like me that refuse to do it?
No, actually what it is like, sometimes new folks come on, like they bought J&D out, if they didn't sign up for electronic recording. It's a secure site, so it does cost them a little bit, not a lot. A lot of folks get it mixed up with email, and it's not an email. It is a trusted submitter you have to go through. It's like Simple File, CSC, and we have EPN. That's out on my website, so if anybody wants to file electronically, they have to go through them.
Okay,
That answer your question?
that answers that one, yep. The other one, just when you put something out on the computer, like these charts, it comes on my computer 90 degrees off, so I have to sit like this to read it. Is that something that can't be controlled? Is it something that could be changed? Or is it something that if I've ever figured out how I can turn my page on the computer? I can. Okay, I'll find somebody to tell me how to do that.
Otherwise, you have to stand on your head. I have no other explanation.
Okay, yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Anybody else have any questions?
No? It's not.
Okay,
Thank you,
perfect.
Rose.
You're welcome.
Thank
Good
you.
to know.
County treasurer update.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You should have received my report with the agenda. Interest rates are staying up there, which is good news for the investments we have. We at this time of the year, have more interest income than we did in 2023, so that's good. I think you had kept the budget at the same level as it was last year, so as long as interest rates don't go down too much, we should probably meet the budget. And I also have some things, exciting things that we've been doing with our bank account in the office. Our RCU has been offering some other services. They started offering Positive Pay, which is where we'll upload any checks that we write and give the bank that information, so then if there's a check that comes through that doesn't match our records, they'll flag it and ask us if we want it to go through before it goes through. Yep.
That's nice.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. There haven't been any other banks in our area that offered that, and now one started offering it. And then they also offer some government entity money markets. So we move some of our accounts to that. The interest rate is around 5.25% right now on that, so get some interest on those accounts.
That's a good rate.
Yeah, it is, yep. And then we also move some of our accounts to sweep accounts. We have our flex accounts that we always had to move money every night when the company was going to be taking money out the next day, so this will help us so we don't have to watch those accounts. So does anybody have any questions on that?
It's not on that part of it.
Okay. And then I also have the next item on the agenda, the sale of tax foreclosure properties. We had foreclosed on these. I think they were turned over to the county in December. And there's been some new law changes. So before, the county kept all the proceeds, from tax foreclosure property sales, but now we have to give the money back to the owner, anything above our expenses. So I don't know, the county board sets the sale price on these, and you have to set it based on the fair market value. So if we'll just go through them and you can set the sale price on them. Let me know if you have any questions. I have Ann here to help. She can pull up any of the tax information if you have questions about it. So the first one is the parcel number 002-00117-0001. And it's 0.27 acres. It's landlocked. It's in the town of Albion. And the fair market value on that in 2023 was $700. It's just a little over a quarter of an acre.
Lori, if it's landlocked, can we sell it,
We can sell it.
even though it's landlocked?
Yep. We'll offer it to neighbors, adjoining landowners. There can be others that may bid on it, but the board has the discretion to offer it to someone that they feel would use it the best.
I just thought you couldn't sell anything that was landlocked in Trump.
Nope.
Okay,
Sell it.
that's interesting.
And I'm guessing that it'd only be adjoining landowners that will bid on it, so then it won't be
Yeah.
landlocked
That'd make more
anymore.
sense, yeah.
Right. Anybody want to make some suggestions on the sale price on that?
You had, I haven't found it again yet, but you had some numbers up there what the amounts due were, and didn't you have?
Right. Do
Didn't
you
you
have-
have the fair
I-
market, yeah, I haven't
Oh,
got
you
it
don't
back
have it
yet.
with you? Okay. Yeah, I could read that off for you. The fair market value is $700, and our unpaid taxes and expenses that we've incurred so far are $359.20 on that property.
But now you're saying that we have to put the starting price at for the $700?
Unless there's something that would, we have one further down where the building is condemned on it. You may want to look at, because that probably isn't worth what the fair market value is,
Right, yeah.
to adjust that so that we can get some bids on it.
I make a motion to go for fair market value on this piece.
Okay?
Well, if I was the landowner there, I would soon have that jump.
Right, yeah.
I'll second that.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried.
Okay, the next property is 016-01409-0030. It's 3.97 acres. It's also landlocked. It's part of it's out Lot 2 in Beaver Creek Estates subdivision in the town of Gale. And the assessed value is $4,000, fair market value $10,500, and the expenses we've incurred so far are $380.59. It's 3.97 acres, almost 4 acres. But it's on the other side of a creek, is what it looks like.
So can I clarify? The minimum that can be asked for then is 10,500. The county has 300 and some dollars incurred on that. So anything above the 350 would then go back
To the previous owner.
to the previous owner.
Yep, we would mail them a check, and if they don't cash it, then we can go through the small claims procedure to write that off.
Thank you.
And also, this would be our first round of bidding. What happens if no one bids on these, then we'll go through a second round, and you can adjust the start price to 0. So that will take any and all bids, is what we usually have been doing. But you could set it, the price a little bit,
So you have to start at fair market, but if
Right.
it doesn't go, then you can go below that.
right.
Okay. And this is landlocked.
Yes.
So we need a motion separate on every one of these, in other words, so.
I'm
Right.
not sure how that
Can we go
works.
down the list and then just make one motion?
I'm-
Do them separate?
Yeah. Well, you can't.
No,
You have to first start out at a minimum bid.
Right.
And then if nobody bids, you can come back and do
Right.
that.
yep.
When you say landlocked, there's no way for the neighbor to get to this land either.
Well, yes, there'd be ways for the neighbors, the adjoining landowners to get to it. Because I think the creek runs along the east side of the property, so anybody on that west side, doesn't it, Ann? Isn't there a creek along the east side? Yeah,
So I guess I'm gonna make the motion at fair market value to
Yep,
move this
okay.
property. We have to get them moved.
Yep. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Next,
Okay, so
Next
then the
item.
next property is 016-01419-0048. This is 7.82 acres. It's part of a Lot 1 in Beaver Creek Meadows subdivision. They were from the same owner. And this is all agricultural assessment, so that means I do not have a fair market value on that, because we do not have fair market values for ag land, because they're assessed a lot lower than fair, or full value. But it is 7.82 acres. So you also have the option, if you don't feel that you can put a value on this, we could hire an appraiser to look at it. We could do that for any of these. That's always an option you have. But if you feel that you know what ag land is going for,
What was it? Taxes against it? How much is it?
the expenses right now are $380.59.
so it's low-grade ag land? Very low.
So,
No, that's not, that's the expenses we have
Or the
incurred.
expenses?
Yep,
Right.
the taxes and ag land is assessed very low, so the taxes are not very high on
Right,
ag
yeah.
land.
I guess we're in a position to get our money, right? And the landowner, if he hasn't taken care of business, I guess we just want to get it sold and get it cleared from the county.
Looks
So I
to
don't-
me like, you know,
So we
this
could
is,
just make a small value to get,
well, you want to make sure that it's close to fair market value.
do.
Yes,
so then
yeah.
we're kind of
I was
caught.
thinking along the lines of about 2,000 an acre would be a reasonable number for that type of land.
And it looks like it could probably be developed. It's right off of a subdivision there. But on any of these, I don't know how that land
Right.
lies. You know, if it's hilly or
Yeah.
ditch, or,
Okay,
can you
yeah,
tell that?
okay. You made a motion to set 15,000 for an asking price? Okay, and we have a second. Any other discussion?
What does it cost to have somebody assess that and let you know what it's worth?
I haven't put out any bids on that, so I don't
Have an
know.
idea what it would- Can the
Yeah.
county do it themselves? Can our assessor go out there and look at it, or? we don't have
No, their assessors are all employed by the municipality.
one? Oh,
That's pretty much ag land, it's going anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 or more.
Can you tell if it's hilly or a ditch?
I have the elevation lines on here.
well, there's a little elevation to it, yeah.
Where is this land at?
It must be being farmed if it's agricultural assessment, so must have that value there.
Blue Stem Lane. And
It's in the town of Gale.
Soil Lane.
Something we could identify with.
It just, we can always change it later, 15,000.
Yep. That's what we've got for a motion in a second, so. Anything else, Adi?
No, I just had a
Well, all in favor of using the 15,000 number for this one for a starting point? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, the next property is 020-00397-0028. It's .578 acres, and it's part of Shandsburg Road and the right-of-way. The fair market value in 2023 was $500. Expenses that we have incurred so far are $381.26. So being it's a road right-of-way, I'm not sure if we're going to get any bids, but I was told by the former committee that you wanted us to foreclose on those, to get them back on the tax roll.
Make a motion to approve the $500 value to be sold.
Well, 500 isn't quite enough, is it?
It's a road right-of-way, so it really can't be used for anything. It's half an acre.
The tax is, give somebody to split that up, because nobody's gonna buy one. Two of the roof up there. There might be part of everybody's lawn on there, but each individual.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd probably have to get it surveyed then, and then is it worth it?
We don't want to invest any more in it, do we? We want to get it taken care of.
And that's one of these properties that's hard to sell.
Yeah. Yeah, who's gonna buy that? Yeah.
We've had a few attorneys that they leave these parcels off when they sell property. You know, most of the time you own to the middle of the road, but
Right.
some of the attorneys have been leaving that off just because, I don't know if they don't. I'm not sure why they're doing that.
Okay, so we had a motion for the $500 figure
Yes.
on this one. I don't remember hearing a second. Second, okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
By chance, if there, as an individual, I don't know, it's a part of my lawn, could I just come in as an individual and say, I'll take this portion of it?
We, like I said, we'd probably have to get it surveyed so that we'd have a legal description for just that portion.
So the second time around, that might be what we have to do, or you're thinking we should do it now?
But do you realize what a survey costs?
Yeah, no, that's,
Okay,
you might be better off not doing anything? Yeah.
right,
Right, okay. Let's stick with what we're doing here then.
okay.
Okay, we're moving on to the next item.
Next one is 022-00014-0001. This is .137 acres, and it's also part of a right-of-way of, it's part of State Road 121 and the right-of-way of, and then it's in the town of Pigeon. It's ag assessment, so we don't have a fair market value on this one. The expenses so far are $222.05.
How do we clear that from the record if we don't get a bid? Can
It
we
would just stay owned by the county
Right.
if we don't get a bidder on it.
Is that maybe the best way to go, or do we still want to put it out there and see what can be done?
We can always put it out again when we
Okay.
have other properties that are for sale. It won't cost us anything more to offer that at another time when there are other properties.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you, Doc, let's keep it, I mean,
The only thing is, with the new law, if we keep it, the previous owner can come back to us and say that, this is the value on this property, I want my money. So if we offer it for sale and show
Okay.
that we can't sell it, then they don't have any case there.
okay, that's
So,
interesting.
do we want to do like another $500 value on this?
This one is
It doesn't have.
is smaller. If you look at the last one you said at $500, that was .5 acres. This
Okay.
one's .137
Can
acres.
we do 300 just to get this thing cleared up?
That's up to you.
I'll make a motion that we put it up for $300.
Second.
And a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, now the next one is parcel number 022-00161-0001. This one is 2.35 acres. It's part of State Highway 121 and Steep Cooley Road right-of-way in the town of Pigeon again. The fair market value was $2,300. Our expenses so far are $303.92.
Make a motion to sell at fair market value.
Second.
The 2,300 number. Right, yeah, right. No, you, okay. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Addie, second, okay. More discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Okay, then the next one is 022-00193-0001. This one's 1.493 acres, and it's part of State Highway 121 and right-of-way, and it's in the town of Pigeon again. These last three now have all been from the same owner. It's ag assessment, so I don't have a fair market value on it. The expenses so far are $236.41. The actual assessment is 0.75 acres agricultural, 0.743 acres undeveloped, so it's about half and half, half ag, half undeveloped. It's 1.4.
Where's our number, like $400 on this property? Would that make
This-
sense?
Yeah, this one's 1.493 acres.
Does that compare in size to the last two again?
The first one that we did was 0.578 acres, and you set that at $500.
Okay. So maybe go to 1,000? Everybody agree? No? Do you have a different number?
Nobody can pay it. I know the owner here, and they just refuse to farm it out as far as they can, they refuse to take it.
But there again, we've got to get it cleared up, so just
Yep.
put a number and put it out there
Yeah,
for $1,000.
Pardon?
Does-
The 22193-1. Yeah.
That was a motion, right?
That's, yes, I make a
Yeah,
motion
yeah.
for 1,000.
Okay, and a second? Yep, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, the next one isn't a road right-of-way. It's 173-00132-0000. This one is a lot in the village of Pigeon Falls. It has a house on it, but the village has condemned that house.
Right.
Yeah. And the fair market value in 2023 was $53,000. The expenses and taxes are $5,320.69. They had the building assessed at $24,000, the land $11,800. And this is one you need to keep in mind that if the building's condemned, anyone who buys it will have to take that down, so there'll be expense that they'll incur doing that.
I'm familiar with that. That's a very nice lot, right on the
I
main
know we
highway.
have had a lot of interest in the lot.
But I don't know, yeah.
And the fair market on the land is,
Well, I don't have a fair market between dividing the land and the buildings up. The assessed value, the buildings were $24,100, land was $11,800. So that's a total assessed value of $35,900 compared to a fair market of $53,000. So I'd say maybe like around $13,000, $14,000 would be the fair market on that.
Yeah, 'cause if
On
you
the
buy it,
land.
You have to incur the expense of tearing that all out.
Right.
And cleaning up there, and digging
Right.
it out before you can do anything.
Yeah.
Is there
That
any?
would be, I'm sure, village water and sewer there too, so that's
Yeah.
of value to
They
the,
wanted to go for like 12.5, just to cover things.
is that a lot in Pigeon would be only 12.5, are you saying?
But, no, because it's got that junk house on it, you gotta go.
Yeah, considering they gotta tear the buildings down.
yeah, that's gonna be more than the lot.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So if they have to take 20,000 to do that,
Right.
that have.
Yes,
the
yes,
cost,
Yep.
yeah.
We have a motion for 12.5 for a number. Do I have a second to that?
I'll second that.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, the next parcel is 186-00334-0000. This is road right-of-way again. It's parts of lots 1, 9, 10, and 11, block 74, the first edition in the village of Trempealeau. It's part of County Road K and Chase Street right-of-way.
Yeah.
The fair market value in '23 was $2,000. Unpaid expenses and taxes are $432.03.
So it's that triangle, correct?
Yep, the blue, yep,
So he's actually, paying taxes on the road, correct?
right,
That's what he wants back. So if you sell it, the guy's gonna own half the road, correct?
right,
Do we retain the easement,
right,
or right away?
Right.
We retain that?
yep.
Okay, that's what I was.
Yep. So if anything would happen where that road would move, then they
But we still
could
have the
use that
easement too
land.
For,
Yep.
the right of way for it, for cleaning up the ditches and everything, all that.
Right,
Yeah, okay.
What was the fair market?
two, 2,000.
I'll make a motion to accept the fair market.
Second.
A motion second to use the 2,000 number for that. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried.
Okay, next one is parcel number 186-00560-0000. This is .415 acres. It's part of a 40 and part of Weaver Estates and Weaver Court. And I believe it's right along, it's part of County Road K and the right-of-way again. The fair market value for '23 was $2,100. Unpaid expenses and taxes are $432.03.
I'll make a motion for the bid to be fair market value on this property.
Second.
Okay. Motion second. Any other discussion? To use the $2,100 figure as an asking price. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, then the last parcel is parcel number 231-00258-0000. This one is a vacant lot. The building has been taken down. It was raised. The '23 value was $29,200. The expenses, the village or the city had put the raise fees on there, so that's why the expenses are so high, is $40,954.88. So what happens when there's specials that are put on by the city or any municipality, the county gets their expenses paid first, and then anything left over would get sent to the municipality.
And where is this again? What,
City of Galesville,
oh, City of Gales?
yep, on West Gale.
I'm trying to picture. Yeah, I guess it must be.
My first thought on this is, if we don't use that higher number, does that mean the city of Gill gets upset with us that we didn't try harder?
I would
Or,
think.
or do they acknowledge that this is not a number that's gonna be realized,
Well,
or?
the amount that you're setting is a starting point.
Right.
We could get higher bids. So if it is worth more than that, we should get higher bids on it.
Oh, I know.
So if
And it's
nobody
a
comes
corner
in with a
lot.
higher bid, there's nothing really that they
Corner
can
lot.
argue about that.
no bid, then you can
Right,
come back and.
right, we
revisit.
can start at a lower
That's where I was
point.
thinking, that we use that 40,000 figure as a starting point this time.
Do you think it's worth that, though, when the
I
fair market
wouldn't,
value
but
was
I'm not-
29,200? I don't know what lots are going for.
What's the size of the lot again?
It's a pretty good sized lot.
Can you
I finally
measure that
figured it
out,
out.
Ann?
It's got city water and sewer, so I'd imagine
I used to live right across the
lot-
street
lots
from
in
it.
town usually run 25 to 35,000.
.30 acres.
Yeah,
3 what?
it's like a third of an acre
A third
almost.
of an acre, okay.
Part of the house should be worth more, so, I don't know, 12 foot or 40. Get it, fine, don't.
Yeah,
Oh, that's what I was thinking, if we started with that high number,
We always come back.
we can always come back and go lower, that,
go along.
Right,
and then the city can't say you didn't try hard enough to help
Right.
us. That would be my concern,
I'll second John's motion.
okay?
So what is the motion for 40,000?
40.
Yep. Okay, we have a motion, and we had a second someplace, didn't we? Yeah. To use 40,000 for a number, so, any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's the
Okay.
number.
That was it.
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
I see that, yep. We adopted so that you can come right now if you want to, even though you're not next up. Because it sounded like you had some conflict possibly.
I do, I'm good until 9, so whatever works for you guys.
If you wanna,
She may as well, yeah.
yep,
Would you like me here or here? or-
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's a good call. Good morning. Thank you for working with my schedule this morning. What you have is a creation of the Trempealeau County Opioid Settlement Committee. The purpose of this is to really find a way, a formal way to start designating that money, to start using that, and not just having it in a bank account, which is also important, but to find a way to apply it, which is what the purpose of the settlement was. And so with this creates a committee. There are certain stakeholder departments in it that are represented by the members of the committee. So we do have a county board supervisor, we have the director of human services, the sheriff's department, we have public health, the county administrator, the county board chair, and so forth, as well as a citizen member who hopefully can be found at some point that has been affected by the epidemic. I'm sure you've had an opportunity to review it. One thing I would point out is that we would still be bringing, going back a step even further. So this resolution, if approved, would allow the committee to review, vet, and then propose expenditures, uses to the committee. And then the committee would have a chance to vote on it. And if it was acceptable to this committee, then this opioid committee could take the next steps to then apply and pursue those approved expenses. So any questions about any of it, or? I submitted a lot of information. I was trying to anticipate what you might have questions about.
So the committee consists of who? Susan?
It would be Supervisor Nutter, Jay Hine, the sheriff, I just clicked away from it, Deanne Anderson, who is the behavioral health supervisor and human services, Jen Como, Rebecca, Chair Austin, and myself, and a citizen member.
So everybody brings their ideas to you and you guys go through them and see if they qualify or if they don't.
Exactly, to see if it's appropriate. You know, if you recall, when we signed it, when the county signed it, there were a number of approved uses, and you can only use the money for approved use. So, and the other part is to make sure that it's appropriate for Trempealeau County, even if it's an approved use.
Yes, I feel it's time to move forward, and we will need a motion from us today, right?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion second to move forward with this. Just for my clarification, we do this and then it goes to full county board to
That's correct.
create the committee.
That's correct.
Then any solutions, whatever suggestions, whatever they come up with, comes back through this board again?
That's
And then
correct.
the full board? Okay.
No, so once the committee is created, the uses come back to this board for its approval. And if you guys approve it, then the committee can then take the next steps on its own.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So it wouldn't go back to the county board the second time.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Carried.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yep, thank you. Now we go back to resolution regarding the courthouse renovation.
And you should have that resolution. It was one that you worked on last month and came up with the dollar figure. It should be on your packet.
It's in here? I didn't see
Should be
it.
there and also on your screen.
Well, that's what I was gonna go to the
Oh,
screen.
okay.
Yep.
But Paul, I thought they approved that resolution last month. But that was
I
in
know, but
May
it's going to go to
last-
county board this month.
Yep.
So you were going to finalize it, I think, this time, because you haven't signed the resolution.
Yeah, for some reason, we amended it to not go to county board in April, but would come. Right, yeah.
Just a point of clarification, in designating these funds, then that could change, even if they were approved. You could make a decision in the future that would change that, but this would at least identify it right now.
Yep.
It's in, yeah, it's in your packet. So we're looking at $3,488,998.
18, yep, finally got
Say
that.
that again, Paul. 3,
$3,488,998
488.
and 18 cents.
And then it also designates it,
In that, you got the breakdown.
Just go around that, so I just don't see where there's $3 million worth of renovating to be done.
we can,
I just don't see it. Then, basically, I think we should just give up on the Samuels and just start doing it on our own. Because literally, we've changed a bunch already. She's got new offices, clerk of courts, county clerk is staying where they are. She's got new offices, and, who moved in your, land records, moved into her previous office. So some of this stuff is happening already that I don't see where, the only thing I can see we really need to do is widen that hallway, you know?
I think.
Well, I will speak to saying, just having only been here a short period of time, I do feel like the space is, well, first of all, it is very, it's just, laid out inappropriately in a lot of areas. Some spaces are not appropriate even for office space currently. The lighting, overall, I think, looking at a broader view of how we attract staff to an inviting place to work is really important as well. And bringing the ADRC over, and again, just in looking at my little bit and having moved to the corner that I'm in, and actually, I haven't had an opportunity to talk with you yet, John. That's on my agenda to talk with you kind of on thoughts on where we need to look at moving offices. Because of the, really what I feel is inappropriate expectations for people that have mobility issues to access that far section of the building to get to the clerk's office, treasurer, and register of deeds. So I have met with departments and talking about this, but really, again, having moved an office that I don't think, my office in the HR that's not accessed by the public, and my access to the whole building and to the front entrance. And I welcome that opportunity, but again, having people in my life that have mobility issues, it's really, that's a big expectation to expect the public to be able to access that easily. And having just talked with Samuels, I really, my question in looking at that number is that that number is not too much. It's not, probably not enough to actually do the project appropriately for the future, and looking at how Trempealeau County addresses needs in the future. So these are conversations, though, that I want to continue as we move forward, and I'll bring some of this for, I think right now, Paul needs this as a record-keeping piece, is to make sure that we're identifying where these funds are being moved to right now because of budgeting concerns, that we can change this, but this right now is where we want to identify funds to move to so that we can continue the conversation. And like I said, I just had a meeting last week with the Samuels Group and with some of the department heads. I want to continue to talk with the board about this, this process and this whole conversation of really what the needs are here. So I would recommend that this would be moved forward at this time, understanding that this can be changed.
Just a comment. I think when we got into the remodeling thing, it was my concern that if we do let it go and we have courtrooms that are just sitting there, 5 years from now, we decide it has to be done, which I don't agree. I think it needs to be done sooner than that. And the costs are gonna be what? $10 million? And then we still have a building here that isn't updated, so I would be definitely in favor of moving forward and see what some of those concerns are.
Paul, do you have the number on what we've already spent?
On the renovation,
Yeah, on the potential renovation?
I looked at it last week. I think we've spent.
It was
in
a fair
mostly-
sum.
Yeah, it was over 300,000
Right.
In engineering.
So if
venture.
that's one side of the concern, and the other side is that, yes, moving into the future, it's having a proper workspace for our employees. Me, myself, I agree with John in the sense of, it's fine, it's a place to work, you do your work and you go home. I think that in this day and age, things have changed enough, and to be compliant with the disabilities and things like that, to also attract those with disabilities to work here. So if we're not
set in stone. I would like to see this continue to a point where we get some more information.
Can I
You
take-
bet. Go.
After everything is said and done, if you don't want to use this money, at least then you can redesignate it and it can go back to the general fund. But right now, in closing the books, this will go to the general fund if we don't act on the resolution, the county board.
And we have a deadline on the ARPA funds designation as well, correct?
End of 2024, the end of this year,
Yeah.
and spend them before 2026, the end of 2026.
Marty, you had a question?
I have to agree. I think it's better if we just designate this at least. Then you won't, you know how it is if you have money out there, people chip away at it. Now, if we redo the old building, and if we don't, that's still up to us down the road. But at least this is designated and we're not chipping away at it, and then when it does come, we won't have anything left because we used 20 here. And everything. And Doc brought up a very valid point that we have to decide too, if we're gonna do anything. It's easy to say, well, we got all these rooms, we'll do it in 2-3 years. Well, you're doing 2-3 years, but you're talking another $400,000 every year with interest and building costs and labor costs and material costs. And then every time you kick the can down the road, you also have mobilization costs. I mean, there's more cost involved if we decide down the road to do it. So I said, there's a lot to take in here, you know. But I would like to see that at least, I agree with putting this, agreeing to this resolution and saying, hey, these funds are designated for this year, so we don't, and we can, at least we know we got the money there if we so choose to.
Mr. Chair, can I speak?
Yes, Kevin?
Just in general, I can see both sides of the argument. I can see wanting to make it attractive to current and future employees, yet I can see the other side too, while at the same time being cost conscientious to our constituents too. So I think kind of what you guys have proposed so far kind of meets both sides of the issue, which I can be a devil advocate and see both. Thanks.
Okay. So, I'm a little confused here. We actually voted to move this forward
Correct.
last month.
Correct.
So we don't need to move it forward today, do we? Or do we need to
Well, it's-
clarify that we're moving it
Technically,
forward?
it'll go to, technically, it'll go to county board this month because you did act on it last month.
Right.
But because of some things that have come up, I thought it better be hashed over, I guess is the word.
Okay, so we probably should ask for a motion to continue to move it forward.
I am going to make that motion to continue.
And Susan's shaking her head, yes. There you go.
Okay, so we have the motion to move these numbers into the
Yes.
designated. Do I have a second to that? Okay, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
I'll have to change that on the bottom here, where it says 4-0.
Oh,
I'll change it to today's date.
okay. I think you had today's date on it. You had today's date on it.
No, I had 4-1.
Okay, well, the one I signed said 5-6 on it.
That was the
That was the
That was the other
opioid
one,
one.
okay.
So I'm not gonna bring this one around to sign this time
Okay.
because I'm gonna change the date on there.
Okay,
You'll sign it on county board.
item 13. Discussion / possible action on healthcare center bond refinance. Who's what? I have, that's all I know about it. Yep.
Good morning.
Morning.
For those of you that may not know me, I'm Lori Glonert from the Trempealeau County Healthcare Center. The agenda item this morning is regarding our 2015A refinancing bond, which is the bond that we use to build our new main building. It's been in place the bond of the term initially was 20 years. We are about halfway through that term. There is a call date for that, for refinancing, possible refinancing of that bond on August 1st. So Brian has reached out to Jerry and I, and the interest rates are at a point where they're fluctuating pretty dramatically, but right now they are at a point where there could be potentially some savings for the Trempealeau County Healthcare Center to refinance that bond without lengthening the term or any upfront money, any balance due or anything like that. So the numbers are looking favorable to us. So this is something that our Board of Trustees did approve a motion to move this discussion forward to this committee for your discussion, and then possible movement to the full county board. We're wanting to get this through. We're not in a rush. I'll let Brian speak to that further. But we would appreciate to have the approvals and things in line so that when the numbers do look favorable, even more favorable to us, we have everything in line to try and make that happen if you so approve. And with that, I'll turn it over to Brian.
Good morning to you all. I'll try to keep things high level. I think Lori gave some good background. We are approximately 8 years into what was a 20-year bond issue. Original issue amount was $27 million. There's presently a little under 19 million left, or will be at August 1 anyways, once the principal payment is made for the year. Final maturity date is February of 2035. Again, originally 20 years in term. As was discussed, we're really looking at this as a pure refinancing opportunity. No changing in the structure of the debt. We can't go longer than what it is right now. The statutory limitation for general obligation debt is 20 years from the date of issue, so that's a non-starter. As Lori mentioned, and as is customary, when you go out to the capital markets, you attach to a particular debt issue an optional redemption date. And prior to that date, you're essentially locked out for making any prepayments or just freely refinancing. And that, as I mentioned, is the common characteristic for longer-term issues, primarily because you get better interest rates as a result of that. If you tell the bondholders, we're going to guarantee that you get some rate of return for a specific period of time, and that you can't just the next day turn around and, well, rates have gotten better, we're going to refinance out of this, right? They're going to charge you a higher rate as a result of that. And so that sort of feature is common. And so we're approaching that optional redemption date or call date where we can prepay at face value. That date is August 1 of this year. So essentially, you could close at any time between now and any date in the future, right? It's not a one-time only thing. It's the window opens and then it doesn't close until the end of the life of the issue. The rates on that issue, which sound high, but I'll assure you that the county got good cost of capital at the time, but the remaining rates are 5%, 25 through 28, and 4%, 29 through 35, which sounds a little odd that rates would go down, but the coupon or the rate you pay to the bondholders isn't necessarily indicative to the cost of the financing, because essentially you got paid more than face value. So I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but I'm happy to. If anybody has questions, I can get you the gory details. But in any event, we're at a place where rates do make sense from a refinancing perspective. If you look back a number of months, about 2 is when we first really started kind of dialing in and tracking this. And since that time, guess what? Rates have gone up. In some parts of the interest rate spectrum meaningfully, almost as much as half a point. So there was a bit of a backup in rates over the last 6 weeks for any number of reasons. Rates are down through the end of last week from where we were to start the week. So again, we're kind of, I wouldn't call it a roller coaster because we're still near some recent highs, but we've come down a little since then. So our original estimates, if you look through the end of the life of the issue through 2035, even with a little cushion, had us about $1 million in total savings, which equated to about $90,000 a year for the remaining term. Subsequent to that, as rates have moved up, we've not quite halved in savings. So some back-of-the-hand estimates based upon some current transactional results would indicate somewhere a little over $600,000. And so, roughly, 40 to 50 basis points, 0.4 to 0.5%. If you move rates up, that's what happens, is your savings diminish rather quickly. So in light of that, we discussed at the healthcare center board meeting a number of options in terms of how to proceed. Refinancings are an opportunity, they're not a necessity, right? We're not going out with a new project that needs funding. You're gonna get invoices, you gotta pay them. In this case, we have the luxury of time, and we can try to find the most efficient path forward from an economic perspective. And so there's a few ways to do that. One of those is just to keep an eye on the market and sell a refinancing issue on the date of a county board meeting. That has been the traditional way you've done things. You've done things a few different ways, including what I'll describe here. But one of those is we just always target a county board meeting date for a sale date. That happens to work very well for new money. It doesn't always work very well for pure refinancing activity, where we're really at the whims of the interest rate environment. And so while I personally don't have a crystal ball, at least one that sees out a very long ways, you can kind of get a feel for things over the course of, say, a month. Another way to approach this is, again, because we're refinancing for savings, the folks at the healthcare center who are responsible for paying the debt service on these bonds, there has been no levy ever for this issue, and I would hope to stay that way, can say, you know what, here's the minimum amount of savings that we're willing to accept. We'll take anything over that, of course, but no less than X. And so essentially, the Exec Finance Committee weighs in on that as a recommendation, and then the board, we get an authorizing resolution in front of it for consideration, much like any other bond issue, except within it, it would say essentially, this transaction can be executed, we're gonna delegate some authority as long as these parameters are met. So the issue size is not more than X. It's gonna be sized to execute the refinancing. We've done a little bit of an estimate here at the present time. And with cost, that's somewhere a little over $19 million. And so we establish a not to exceed amount. Less of an issue for refinancing, that's more of an issue for new money projects, because you really don't wanna aim too high, right? So in this case, we would establish that not to exceed amount. More importantly, we would establish a minimum savings threshold. So essentially, the board would weigh in and say, all right, we will preliminary authorize the refinancing of the bonds, assuming that they will be issued with no less than a minimum amount of savings. There'll be some other parameters in there, but that's really the key one. And so that would allow us to then proceed with a lot of the sausage making that goes on behind the scenes, document preparation. Paul's very familiar with an official statement, which is a lengthy disclosure document that goes out to prospective bond purchasers so they can review the transaction, et cetera. All of those things need to happen behind the scenes. And then essentially, we would look forward and identify, in the market, how much are we competing with, are rates moving in the right direction, and try to find an appropriate moment in time then to actually sell the bonds, to achieve the savings, potentially without coming back to the board. Once the board adopts the authorizing resolution, again, as long as the parameters are met, it maintains the authority to certain delegated officials to sign documents that would accept a binding purchase proposal that would have all of the rates and terms established. Everything else in that resolution would look exactly the same as it did for every other issue of general obligation debt that the county authorizes on a preliminary basis. So do you have to do things that way? No, but that is a level of flexibility that is attractive when you're doing a refinancing transaction, where essentially that authorization would need a sunset at some point, but in that window of time, we can put a sale on the calendar where we think it makes logical sense. If we don't achieve the minimum savings thresholds, we either just pull the sale off the calendar or it can't be awarded, right? But as long as we're at or above, it can continue to move forward, it can continue to be executed, et cetera. If this body deems it that we just want to hit a board meeting date, that can be done as well. It eliminates a little bit of flexibility, but That is certainly an option. Either way, typically there's an authorizing or preliminary resolution that comes before the board, essentially consenting to allow individuals throughout the organization to work with outside professionals to get the bond issue kind of put on a tee, so to speak. So all the work that goes into preparing the documents, et cetera, everybody knows they're in good stead to proceed in that course of action. So maybe I'll pause there and see if there are any questions, but I'll preface anything you might ask with the intention in an ideal world would be to bring that resolution before the board meeting in June. That can certainly be done in July as well. As I stated at the outset of this discussion, this is an opportunity. There's no clock ticking, right? We're still in a fine place. So maybe I'll open it up to questions, comments.
I was just wondering, what's our present rate of interest on the current?
Yeah, the current bonds have interest rates attached to each individual maturity. So you could go buy the 2025 maturity, 26, et cetera. If you wanted to go invest in those, you could go find them and buy them. And those rates range from 5%, 25 through 29. I'll make sure you give you the right number. 2025 through 2028, the rate is 5%, and then 29 through 35, the rate drops down to 4%.
Our present rate of interest from the existing loan. What's
Those are the rates.
Oh,
Yeah.
they moved too? I thought they were.
No, they're fixed. That's what they were when the bonds were issued.
Okay. Yeah.
They do not change.
Mr. Chair? I have a
Yes.
question. Lori, could you speak to the parameters that the healthcare center trustees set?
We talked about that a little bit. Brian gave some recommendations to us, but as far as the board itself, we kind of left that to Brian's discretion on what he would recommend. There were no parameters set at that level, and that would be something that Brian would recommend at this level moving forward, what those parameters might look like.
Yeah, so preliminarily, when we ran the numbers initially, the roughly $1 million in cash flow savings, that resulted in, all right, I'll back up for a moment. There's a number of different ways to look at refinancings and the strength of it. So we try to find these apples to apples comparisons. One of those is what would be called net present value savings. So net of all costs, net of all fees and expenses, when you take how much you're saving every year, and you take that stream of savings and you discount it back to today's dollars. That's the net present value savings. And then we compare that to how much in dollar amount you're refinancing. At the $1 million level, that cash flow stream totals $1 million in savings. That was just a little under 5% net present value savings. So that you take the present value, divide it into the 18.8 million that remains, and that's the number you get to. When you look at the 600,000 level that we're at now and you discount that back, that's a little under 3%. To me, that's not enough, because once you make this decision, you go ahead and issue the refinancing bonds, now you're locked out again for, say, 7-ish years, because we'll have, still about 10, 11 years remaining. And so if you're going to take a kick at the can, you want it to be a meaningful kick at the can, because you're pushing that window out even further now at this point, which, again, is common. So the 4% level of savings gets you to about, I think it's about $750,000, $750,000. That equates to about $78,000 a year. The $1 million was about $92,000 a year. I would argue if you're going to draw a line in the sand, that's about the lowest number you'd want, because again, if you get below that, you could argue there is no emergency. Why don't we just wait to see if this gets better? With the passage of time, even if rates stay the same, the economics of the refinancing deteriorate, because you're still paying about the same amount of costs, and then you're amortizing those costs over a shorter period of time. And so there's some time value that makes some sense in terms of the sooner the better, but at the end of the day, interest rates are the most powerful variable in the whole dynamic. And so if we can continue even if we reprice this today and ran new rates top to bottom, it would get better. How much better? I don't know off the top of my head, but I would personally like to see 4% or better net present value savings. If it's deemed that the healthcare center board should also pass off on that, we can go through that process. There's no issue. It just so happened when we had the meeting last Wednesday, that was also the conclusion of the Federal Reserve's meeting, where they come out and they make their announcement about what they're going to do with short-term interest rates, which was nothing, but the market kind of hinges on all of that. And subsequent to that, across the board, rates came down. Not in a tremendous way, but in a meaningful one that would mean real dollars, which I had kind of anticipated, but could I have guaranteed you that? Not at all. And so the hope would be that interest rates continue to come back towards the level that they were, and that we'd be able to achieve the at least 4% savings that I'm referencing.
So you're saying in the next 3 months, it wouldn't matter if we.
90
what
days does
today-
not pose any much of an issue. 3
Okay.
years,
Right.
if rates stayed the same, you would end up saving less money.
Right.
But I can guarantee you rates probably aren't going to be the
If
same.
we decided to do it on a board night, we do have the option of any one of the next 3 months.
You know, the thing with the parameters is, there are also occasions where we go, you know what? We're going to put it on the calendar. Why don't we just make it a board meeting night? Because what difference does it make if it was a Monday, a Wednesday, a Tuesday? You know, if we're targeting that week, sometimes we just arrive at that result anyways. But this would give the latitude to sell and price the bonds on a day other than a board meeting date, which again, for refinancing, is a bit of a nice thing, because let's say that week when there's a board meeting, there's like 10 other Wisconsin issues coming at the market. And so just
Right,
like any other market,
Right.
it's supply and demand. And so
Okay,
I would say that'd be more like, let's say the state or some other large entity is issuing bonds, and so there's a lot of supply in the market that week, and we would otherwise go, you know what, all else equal, let's fight a different week, right?
Okay.
We don't need to be in the market this week. Let's be in the market next week or the week in front of that. Or we might say there's some economic releases, everybody stares at those, and then the market is volatile leading up to that and just after that. Let's just avoid that. And so there is some value in establishing kind of some of these minimum thresholds when you're only doing refinancing. For other aspects, you can do that if you have some timing issues, but you know, when it's new money, you kind of need the money by a certain date. In this case, you don't.
Go ahead, Audie.
Go ahead.
You said the existing bond is 5% till 29, and then it's 4% from 29
Yep.
to 35.
Correct.
The new one's gonna be what?
It's hard to know until you price them.
I know you
but
can't
yeah,
nail
so
it, right, perfect, yeah, I understand.
right now, short-term interest rates are higher than intermediate until you get out to the long end. And so all in, you know, you're probably looking at like 375. So I'm blending all the rates together. So when you sell municipal bonds, each individual maturity has its own rate attached to it. And then also you want to include costs, just like you would in a consumer loan like APR, right? So on an all-in basis for the remaining roughly 11 years, if you were to sell the bonds this week, you'd probably price at about a 375% blended rate, top to bottom.
Blended as it could fluctuate a little bit every year.
Each individual maturity is going to have its own rate, and
So you can't lock it for 10, 15, 12
oh no,
years.
they'll be locked. All the rates will be fixed. So
You're gonna lock it in for like, what do you got, 14 years? No, 15 years?
11.
20, 24, and 39.
2035 is the final maturity.
Oh, 35, I was thinking 39. Okay, well then, well, I can see you got some savings there, yeah. Okay, that's what I wanted to know, thank you.
so what do we actually need today, Riley? Just the okay that we want you to move forward, or?
There are two paths forward in my mind. One is you want definition from the healthcare board on the parameters, and you want to see the draft resolution as a committee before it goes to the board. The other path is essentially we've kind of arrived at these parameters already. The most important one is the minimum savings. The rest of them don't matter a whole lot, because if we did like, what's the max interest rate? Again, that drives the savings. So they're really kind of all going, they're all pointing in the same place, is the savings is what's most important. So the resolution that would go before the board would essentially be much like any other preliminary authorizing resolution. It would just say that here, it would talk about these thresholds that you must satisfy, and here's who then can execute the proposal form from the purchaser to lock everything in on the day of sale. So the two paths are have that resolution at the June board meeting or have it at the July board meeting and then kind of run back through the channels. We don't need to have this whole discussion again, but you would have a preliminary resolution on this agenda for, basically for you to sign off on that when we then go to the board.
But I think, at least in my point, that you're gonna have to give us that number, because I have no clue.
Yeah,
what-
I would use the 4%. I was at a
Right.
conference Wednesday through
Okay.
Friday, so I took what rates kind of settled in at the end of the week, and then looked at things, and then I can do the math to figure
Right.
out, all right, we're at this percent now. If we were at 4%, what would that number be? Where did we start at roughly $1 million? The 750, the roughly
Right.
78,000 a year makes some logical sense. There's no right answer.
Okay.
I'm starting there, but other people can weigh in too. It's obviously all.
Well, for me, as
your collective
one
money.
individual, I guess the 4% is where I would agree, but I'm just one vote.
I would actually like to make a motion to proceed with the healthcare bond refinancing to be no less than 4%.
That's fine. There'll be some other parameters, but we usually help populate those in it, that's the most important one. So, yes.
And put the
Is-
time period in.
That's what I was gonna say. Is there a time period that you would recommend, like with over the next 90 days?
I would maybe go through like the end of the calendar year.
Okay, okay.
Fiscal year, calendar year are the same. You have to put some sunset on it. It just needs to be
Right.
reasonable. If rates moved away from us, we would just tell you, we're just standing on this at the moment and don't expect, if we want to pick it up again, we'll come back to you and let you know that is the intent, is we're going to start to progress because something came back in the right direction. But there's no real reason to sunset it at like 90 days.
Okay.
I can't think of a
I would
good
add
one.
that to my motion
through
to take
calendar.
it to the end of the year of '24.
I'd second that.
Okay,
Where does August 1st come into this?
The payment dates are February 1, August 1. Interest only
Oh,
on February
okay.
1, principal and
Okay,
interest on August
okay.
1. And so then you typically you match up that prepayment date
Okay.
on a principal payment date.
Okay.
Be nice if you could show, like for the board meeting, maybe have a payment sheet that shows what you're paying at 5%, where the savings would occur.
Yeah.
And you gotta break down, literally year by year, so.
My fault, I did this on Friday and then I forgot to hit send. I'm sorry, and I sent Paul an email this morning, which is unfair to him.
So you already have it then. Okay.
Yeah, so you can look at it electronically, and
Okay.
we'll update this. I would anticipate as we move forward, we can't get all this done and then have the sale in July. You have a motion on the table, but we'll give updates, right? So the Healthcare Center Board will also get an update, you would get an update. If you need me here, you need me to answer questions, I can plug in, and that's fine, but otherwise, hey, here's where we're at, we're moving forward, or hey, here's where we're at, we've kind of pushed the pause button.
Is that 3.25 though? That's a pretty good rate. 3.25? That's what this is based on, interest rate, right?
No, those don't measure interest rates at the bottom, I'm sorry.
Oh, they
You don't have all the info in front of you. That's only one page of like a 10-page report. That just has the savings.
okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. I have a question first. The projected savings, whatever it might be, the 78 you mentioned, the 92, that is net savings after all, like, your costs for your services and everything?
Correct.
Okay.
Net of all costs. We will only show you savings net of all
Out
costs.
of all costs, okay. With that, anybody else have any more questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It moves on.
All right. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll work behind the scenes to get the resolution prepared for the upcoming county board meeting, when we'll be there to talk through anything that comes up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to look at this or not, or you wanted that back?
I don't need it back, and you'll
Okay.
get it electronically.
I
as well.
was just gonna say, I will forward my email from him
Okay.
to all of you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for your support.
Discussion action of ARPA funds.
We actually can drop that because of the resolution that
Right,
was
yep.
adopted.
FEMA funds update, and it says Rebecca has an
Yeah,
update for
so I
us.
did follow up on that, because we had had some questions, about this previous. And I just wanted to, highlight that I followed up, just in looking at documentation. The recovery manager had stated that, the funds were, not going to be available through FEMA. I followed up through the Administrator Association group that I speak with and talked to them about FEMA funds for this COVID purpose as well. And actually, other counties had not applied. They did say that they had council that had recommended that not approaching FEMA for these funds because they did not feel that they would be accessible for this purpose. So I would say that this could be removed from the agenda at this time. I do feel like that is completed.
What about the funds?
Even though we didn't get any administration costs back, that's the part that irks me, I guess.
It actually costs us more money than, and headaches
Right.
than the damn thing
Right.
was worth.
Oh, wow. Live and learn.
I just made a note, says it's a lost cause, yep. Allocation of LATCF funds.
That one too,
We
passed the
included that in, didn't
resolution,
we?
so that one can be dropped.
Employee recognition, funding for employee recognition.
So this is, yep, also, there had been a lot of discussion about the employee recognition luncheon and low number of individuals that had signed up for bringing potluck items to the recognition luncheon. And so in meeting with department heads, the question was whether it would be okay for them to move forward with each department identifying $100 from their budgets to reallocate for the purpose of supplying a catered lunch for staff for this purpose on recognizing them. So I'm bringing that forward. We did get multiple bids on various catered items for the event. In two different vendors. This cost came back to approximately $1,800 and was for a taco bar that would be supplied then to staff. Department heads would then provide drinks and desserts for the team. It was, because the cost of food and inflation has gone up quite a bit, the cost of just catering the event, at first, a couple of department heads had suggested the department heads paying for the catered event themselves out of their own funds. Multiple department heads did share with me that they oftentimes supply things already to their staff as ways to thank them. And so I think that there's just because of the costs of things and having that out there and just for staff themselves, supplying the food is costly. And then, again, it is important to recognize our employees and to, and identify them as important pieces to what Trempealeau County does here, so.
Where would this money, what accounts would this money be coming from?
So the thought was, as I've talked to Stacy, and Stacy would meet with our department heads and talking about how they should manage this through their departments. Department heads will be responsible for finding savings in other areas to identify this. And then Stacy will direct us in how to identify that in their budgets.
This figure is roughly $100 per department or something?
Correct. It's about $100. Moving forward in the future, I do feel that this is very important for staff and in recognizing a yearly event for them. And I would like to build something in the budget, but because this year is an exception and not having that set aside. And again, I think the inflationary costs have put a pinch on things. And so this, normally I would say we would like to identify this and put it into the budget before putting something forward like this. But it was brought forward as a suggestion from department heads that this could be a possibility and that they would work toward savings in their own departments to make sure that they could recognize their staff.
Audie, you had a question?
You do it once a year,
That's correct.
and then for how many people? I mean, how many people get this award? Just one person in the whole courthouse, or everybody in every different department picks one?
So-
Or how do you gonna set this up at the
Sure.
DESCO?
Sure. This is a yearly recognition event that would be recognizing individuals that have made milestone markers with the county, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, service 30. But it's a open meal for everyone, a luncheon for everyone. So all staff come, but people that are recognized are those individuals that have hit the milestone. But everybody is recognized for their service.
Jeannie, you had a question?
This happens during public service appreciation or acknowledging, this is the week where the state has set aside to honor and congratulate public employees. So it's just not a random date that we picked a couple of years ago to do this. It happens during a specific week. And also, a couple of years ago when we did it, it seemed odd that staff brought their own food to a celebration for them. So even though it was a great potluck, it's hard to congratulate someone when you had to bring your own food. Just my thought.
Somebody may also bring up the point that some departments have 20 people and some departments have 2, so you take the same amount of each one. Is it fair to the department that only has 2? Should we do it proportionally if we decide to do it, or I'm just throwing out ideas because this is relatively new. So
I
that'd
think
be something to
moving-
think about.
Yeah, definitely, and I think moving forward, that would be, as a whole county celebration, would be more appropriate. I agree, I kind of went back and forth on that too.
That's kind of where I was going with my thought here. How do you make it, I'll call it fair between all departments? What about designating an amount out of the unassigned general fund to pay for this? Just,
That's what my thought, where my thinking was going.
when is this again?
Wednesday.
After tomorrow.
The same days, we're all gonna be in Eau Claire, right? No,
Yeah.
that- Yeah.
We planned it, no.
I think for the cost and the benefit that the employees get from it being recognized, and of course, those that have hit those milestones of high tenure and whatnot, I think if, I would make a motion that we approve it to not exceed $2,000 and it come from the general fund.
We've always had a policy that, you know, taxpayers don't pay for meals for us, so I don't know how we can change that, but I agree with you. I think it's important to recognize their employees, and it's probably as good a place as any. I don't know what the public's gonna think about it, but I would second her motion. That would take and
I
limit
guess if
the
we try it, we'll
favoritism.
find out what the public thinks.
We'll find out in a hurry, yeah.
Well, and, yeah, I get the fact that we would be providing a meal to those employees that would attend, but I think the focus is more on employee recognition and the celebration of that. And it just goes along with it. I don't think having a taco bar is excessive in any way. As far as providing a meal, so I think it just is the least that we can do for our employees.
And my thought would be, it's not an individual thing, like, you know,
Yeah, it's not paying favoritism in two-person department versus a
right. yeah.
30, 40-person department.
And in the end, if we go back the other way for departments paying, that's taxpayer money anyway.
Either way you look at it, it's coming from the taxpayer.
Right. So.
I think this is a good idea, and it's not a burden on any department then.
The only thing with the number you present, based on what I thought I heard you say, taco bar was 1,800, and then drinks, et cetera, have to be provided yet. Is that $200 cushion enough for that?
I think so.
You think
Oh,
so?
go ahead,
Okay.
sorry.
A lot of us department heads have already put in saying that we're gonna be bringing,
Oh.
like Susan was bringing a case of water and some
Okay.
2 liters of pop and stuff like that. So I mean,
Okay.
it's,
So I think
there's
there's
a lot of
sufficient.
donations already that way.
Okay, good. With that, we have a motion and a second to not to exceed 2,000 out of the unassigned general fund, correct? Okay, more questions? All in favor?
I was just,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we'll have to get the resolution written, knowing that we're gonna expend the money before the
Right.
resolution is
Yes,
passed.
yes.
Okay.
I realized that. I guess I didn't state it. Any other?
I was just gonna say thank you. I mean, I think it goes a long way, and when you're talking about, it's a lot about, just recognition is about, retention as well. And so when you're talking with the public, I think people, if people have, question about it, it is, I don't think anybody isn't, understanding the problems that are happening right now in workforce. And so as we look forward in talking about how we recruit for employees, but also how we make sure we retain is really important in thinking about. So I thank you very much for thinking of other ways to fund this and make it happen. That's a good direction forward, I think.
Okay. So with that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Date and time for the next meeting, which will be June 3.
We're gonna be,
That's if you guys keep it the first.
Yeah, we didn't discuss that. Anybody have a problem with keeping the same day and time?
Personally, for me, it would be nicer to not have 2 meetings, morning and evening on the same day, but
Well, that's
Be
easy.
a
Just
month.
change the
so
other
if it works for everyone else, I'm fine with that. Change
Or
board.
change the other
Change
one.
your health.
Well, we've made some attempts to change Board of Health, but because we have 2 physicians that sit on that committee, that's been difficult for them, so we've left it there. We'll see tonight, we'll
Then,
relook into it tonight.
Yeah, it's so nice to
yeah,
have this.
Mr. Chair, the
on
10th,
Monday, but-
John,
is, 'cause it's
John, we're
easy
not
to
gonna be there on
remember.
the 3rd, because that's road school.
Yeah.
Yes, it's road school.
But you gotta make 2
So
trips from
if we could
Trempealeau.
do it on the 10th, the following
And that's
Tuesday,
not
Monday.
anybody else's fault.
That'll be
That's
property,
just the way it is.
committee,
At the same time?
8:30.
Somehow
Yeah,
find out.
actually,
Spend the
3 of
day
us are from this committee are at road school at the
Road
same.
school that next
So
Thursday.
you can have it on Thursday the
If I
6th.
have a conflict, I can always Zoom.
Yes, yes.
Bridget, Doc, what do you guys think about the 6th of June instead of the 3rd?
Thursday.
Thursday?
It's
Monday is
We're on-
road school,
yeah,
Oh.
Monday is what now?
Thursday,
Road
the
school.
6th, you
highway.
said?
Wisconsin County
I can
Highway.
do that.
And 3 of us will be at that meeting
Yeah.
for that
Doc, can you
Monday.
make the 6th on a Thursday?
June 6th. How would I know
It's a
now?
Thursday.
Yeah, no, that's gonna, I'll make it work, yes.
Okay, we'll do that then.
I'm supposed to have a phone with my schedule, but I don't have it. I do have a phone, but no schedule.
So, okay, that's,
And-
next meeting is going to be June 6th on Thursday.
Minute,
At 8:30?
8:30 works fine for everybody.
Paul, you send me information anyway, so you're still doing that, I guess, aren't you?
I got a question while we're here.
Okay.
I was gonna actually bring it up at full board. Because this actually does cost some money making out all this paperwork and stuff, especially when you consider all the committees and mailings and stuff. And that's the reason we got these computers in the first place. We've all had them for 2 years now at least. Is there anybody who has a problem that can't get their,
I've got to get mine in and get it fixed, but otherwise I'm fine. It's not working right.
well, I'm gonna bring it up a regular,
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring it up a regular board
Then you won't have to
meeting,
send me
just
something, Paul.
eliminate this.
I'll still send.
The village did that at our village meetings, and what is nice to have is a paper copy of the agenda.
Yeah.
But yes, everything else.
If you just had,
Be on
I
here.
can easily print off at the beginning of the meeting, like bring it in at the beginning of the meeting, hand them all out to you, so you guys have something to write on it at least.
It's more,
That's why I
it's
print
more
one out as soon
about,
as I get it at home.
John, it's more about, I think, having the documents ready and electronically shared with us before the meeting.
Yeah.
Because when we don't have those documents and we've got to look at them and try to make a decision, that's really not the way I like to work, but
No.
it would be the department heads that would have to have
Am I
this
right?
ready.
That is a mandated.
We're still gonna mail out the board call with the calendar.
Yep.
And then in this case, now can also send you the exec agenda. And that'll all, we wouldn't send you anything else. The rest will all be on the.
But then you can send that in just a little regular envelope.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we
some-
don't need the minutes either.
Some of
No,
that's
because
been
we
going
put that
on.
in the, it's all in the packet.
Yeah, because some of that's been going on because.
We're trying to wean,
Yep.
is what we're doing.
Well, I've been trying to do it for 2 years. I just figure it's
Yep.
baby steps. We gotta get it done.
Well, and I did, on the last two calendars, I did highlight and bold, resolutions are due at 4 PM, day before.
Right, yep.
So I did do that, so if department heads are not looking at their calendar, I guess, I told Paul, I'm like, just don't put it on. Because you have due dates.
Yeah, it only takes one time that they don't have it,
Yep.
Yeah,
that they'll make sure it's on the next time.
Yeah.
So, I
It
agree.
works that way for payroll too, if somebody
Yes,
doesn't
it
turn in their
does.
timesheet.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay, with that.
That savings jet right there will probably pay for this employee luncheon.
There you go.
Right, yep.
There you go.
Okay, next meeting, June 6th on Thursday at 8:30. With that, I will adjourn the meeting at
10:15.
10:15.